Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right in because today we're tackling something that literally every single one of us deals with. I'm talking about that heavy, paralyzing fear of failure and the crushing weight of self-doubt. You know the feeling, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur stepping up to make a huge pitch, an artist staring at a blank canvas, or honestly just someone trying to make a major life change, fear is the ultimate gatekeeper. But what if everything we've been taught about overcoming that fear is completely backward?
Let me ask you a direct question, and I want you to be really honest with yourself here. Do you need to feel confident before you take action? Society constantly tells us that we do. We're sold this illusion that confidence is this magical aura, some sort of prerequisite feeling you absolutely must have before you can step into the arena. So what do? We wait. We wait for the fear to subside, kind of hoping that one day we'll just miraculously wake up feeling brave enough to start.
Okay, let's dive into this. Dr. Russ Harris, a leading voice in acceptance and commitment therapy, has a radical core thesis that completely flips the script on how we think about this. He says confidence isn't a feeling you have before you act. It's actually a byproduct of the actions you take. The actions of confidence absolutely must come before the feelings of confidence. Think about it. You don't feel brave and then jump. No, you jump, and the feeling of bravery follows right after.
And that brings us to a really crucial concept, the confidence gap. Basically, this is that frustrating, paralyzing space between where you are right now and where you desperately want to be. And the crazy part? What's blocking you isn't a lack of talent or skill. Not at all. It's simply the false belief that you've got to feel confident first. Getting stuck in this gap is exactly what keeps so many brilliant professionals and creatives from ever reaching their true potential. They spend their entire lives waiting on a feeling. To conquer this gap, think of this as our character selection screen. We're going to explore 5 key areas today. 1. The observer, Dr. Russ Harris. 2. The believer, Susan Jeffers. 3. The warrior, Ryan Holiday. 4. Comparing their 3 paths. And 5. Building your ultimate toolkit.
Number 1. The observer, Dr. Russ Harris.
So, Dr. Harris approaches fear through the lens of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. His whole vibe is very calm, objective, and deeply mindful. He doesn't want you to fight your mind. He actually wants you to change your entire relationship with it. In fact, Harris warns us against something he calls the struggle switch. Basically, when we fight our anxiety, guess what happens? We just create more anxiety. It's wild. Instead, he offers these 3 pillars. First up is diffusion. Instead of wrestling with your inner critic, you just neutrally observe it. So you don't say, I am a failure. You say, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. See the distance there? It's a huge shift. Next is expansion. This is where you simply observe where fear physically sits in your body. Maybe it's a tight chest or cold hands, and you just make room for it. Just let it sit there. And finally, engagement. You mindfully connect to whatever task is right in front of you. The fear is still in the passenger seat, sure, but you are the one driving the car.
Now here's where it gets super interesting. Harris redefines what we should actually be aiming for by contrasting goals and values. Goals are destination-focused, right? Like getting a promotion or winning an award. The problem is they're super easily blocked by external factors, which creates this massive success anxiety. But values? Values are direction-focused. Being courageous, being honest, being persistent. You can act on your values right this very second, regardless of the final outcome. So finding confidence through the observer lens comes from living by your values, not by desperately clinging to a trophy.
All of this culminates in Harris's brilliantly actionable framework, the courage circuit. Step 1, you face the fear and just acknowledge it's there. Step 2, you open up and use that expansion technique to make physical room for it. Step 3, you connect with your values by asking yourself, hey, what would a courageous person do right now? And finally, step 4, take action. You move your feet, even if your hands are literally shaking while you do it.
Let's move on to number 2, the believer, Susan Jeffers.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sharp friction between our first 2 experts. We are shifting gears entirely. For Jeffers, fear isn't just some quiet passenger you tolerate. It's a loud signal for growth. While Harris's mindful approach tells us to never fight fear and just observe it neutrally, Jeffers tells us to absolutely go to war with it. She believes we have to boldly out-talk the chatterbox in our heads using positive affirmations. She is all about the positive reprogramming of the mind, completely overriding that underlying fear with sheer, unapologetic empowerment.
According to Jeffers, if you dig down to the absolute root of every single fear you have, you're going to find one simple, incredibly toxic thought: I can't handle it.
Think about it. If you truly deeply knew you could handle anything life threw your way, what would you possibly have to fear? Literally nothing. So she introduces this concept of a power vocabulary to shift us from pain to power. You actively change "I can't" to "I won't." You swap out "it's a problem" for "it's an opportunity." It's all about taking total, unyielding responsibility for your own internal state.
Let's look at how this builds into her transformational decision-making framework. So many of us get completely trapped in the no-win model. We get paralyzed by this awful feeling that if we choose path A instead of path B, we're going to make a massive mistake and ruin everything. Well, Jeffers shatters this with the no-lose model. She teaches that there are literally no wrong choices. Actually, scratch that. It's more like every choice is a right choice. If you take path A, you gain one set of experiences. If you take path B, you gain a totally different set. Both paths give you new handles on life, which means growth is guaranteed either way.
And to protect that growth, Jeffers introduces the number 9, specifically the 9-box grid of a whole life. You see, a lot of us feel intense fear because we put our entire identity into just one box, like our career or maybe a single relationship. And if that one box fails, we feel completely destroyed. But if you diversify your identity across 9 different boxes, things like family, hobbies, personal growth, and leisure, a failure in one area simply cannot destroy who you are as a whole person.
Number 3. The Warrior, Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday brings this incredibly gritty, pragmatic resilience to the table. He draws heavily on the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. Now, Holiday doesn't just want you to make room for fear or out-talk it. No, he wants you to use the obstacle itself as fuel. He structures his philosophy around 3 Stoic disciplines. First is perception. Look, you cannot control the event, but you have total 100% control over your internal judgment of it. He advocates for apatheia, which is remaining incredibly cool and objective under intense pressure. Second is action. Start exactly where you are. Momentum is the absolute best cure for fear. If the front door is locked, Holiday says you don't sit on the porch and cry, you use a flank attack and go right through the window. And finally, will. This is cultivating your internal power to outlast any storm.
To build that unbeatable will, the warrior builds an inner citadel during times of peace. They use this fascinating technique called premeditatio malorum. Basically, this is the proactive practice of anticipating absolutely everything that could go wrong before you even start a task. By running a pre-mortem and actively visualizing the worst-case scenarios, you ensure that when those obstacles inevitably hit, and they will hit, they can't shock you. You've already defeated them in your mind.
And that brings us to Holiday's ultimate trump card, Amor Fati, which translates to the love of fate. Listen to this. The warrior doesn't just grit their teeth and accept failure or pain. They actively love it. They treat every single roadblock, every rejection, every disaster as exactly the evidence and the fuel they needed to grow stronger. The obstacle isn't in the way. The obstacle is the way.
Number 4. Comparing the 3 paths.
And this brilliantly illustrates how these philosophies stack up against each other. We've explored the mindfulness of the observer, the proactive empowerment of the believer, and the strategic grit of the warrior. Seeing them side by side reveals just how much diverse power we now have at our fingertips. The warrior uses fear as fuel, the observer makes physical room for it, and the believer boldly pushes right through it by out-talking it. Notice where they focus their control, too. Holiday controls his internal judgment. Harris focuses strictly on physical actions, while just letting thoughts be thoughts, and Jeffers focuses on maintaining a really powerful emotional state. 3 entirely distinct strategies: pragmatic flank attacks, values-based action, and positive affirmations.
Finally, number 5, building your ultimate toolkit. Here is the absolute most empowering realization of all. You do not have to lock yourself into a single philosophy. You can dynamically mix and match these tools based on whatever the day throws at you. You are literally building a custom arsenal for your mind. When anxiety is sitting heavy in your chest and your whole body feels tense, bring in the observer. Neutralize the thoughts, make room for the feeling, and focus on your values. When that inner chatterbox is screaming that you're going to fail and it's paralyzing your decision-making, tag in the believer, overpower it, tell yourself, I can handle it. And when a massive real-world external obstacle completely blocks your path, channel the warrior, use a flank attack, find that momentum, and love the fate that's testing you. Because remember, confidence isn't about feeling incredibly brave from the start, it's about deploying the right strategy to just keep moving your feet.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. The confidence gap is always going to be there. It's going to be waiting for you every single time you try to grow or stretch yourself. But you're no longer showing up empty-handed. You've got the tools. You've got the strategies. The only question left is, which fighter will you choose the next time you face the gap? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and go tackle whatever challenge is waiting for you today.